Hi, first graders. Hope you're all doing well today. Our reading teaching point today is that good readers practice using prior knowledge to make connections with the text or the book. Today we're going to practice that with the book called Funny Farm that I have here with me today. As I'm reading this story, I'm going to stop and I'm going to tell you about some connections that I have with this story. Not all books you will have a connection to, but good readers are always thinking about how they can connect what they're reading in a new book to something that they already know. You might have a connection and remember something that you learned in another book. That's called a text-to-text connection, from book to book connection. That's a great connection to have. You might have a text-to-self connection. That's when you read something in a book and it reminds you of something that you've done before or a life experience that you've had. And the third type of connection that you might have is text-to-world connection. That might be something that you have seen happening in the world, or something kind of a bigger idea that you've connected your story to. So let's go ahead and give it a try with this book, Funny Farm by Mark Teague. In the spring, Cousin Judy, Uncle Earl, and Aunt Josephine meet Edward at the station. So here's Uncle Earl, Aunt Josephine, and Cousin Judy, and on the train came Edward. It is Edward's first visit to Hawthorne Farm. I'm looking out the window. He looks pretty excited to see all the things happening on the farm. In the morning, everyone gets up early. This reminds me of something that's happened in my life before. As you know, I grew up on a farm and we had cows to milk every morning. Now, I didn't have to get up early like my daddy did to go milk cows, but every morning I had a job to do out in the barn called a chore. Sometimes it was feeding the baby calves, sometimes it was feeding the pigs, and I remember having to get up earlier than a lot of my friends and having to go outside and do my chores. I can relate to how he's feeling, yawning. Uncle Earl shows Edward how to milk the cow. I remember doing this job. We had special machines that milk the cows, but sometimes it was my job to use a bucket and squirt the milk out. That reminds me of that. I'm making a connection to this story. It's making me think of something that's happened to me before. Look at Edward over here. He's sleeping. So tired. Judy helps Edward feed the pigs. Uh-oh, looks like he fell in instead. Edward gathers eggs from the hen house. I see him in his basket. Doesn't look like those hens are very happy he's taking their eggs away. In the woods, Edward helps make maple syrup. Ooh, this reminds me of something. I went to a park one time in spring, like we're having right now, and they were tapping the big maple trees for sap. And then I watched them boil the sap and turn it into a type of syrup. And I remember learning it takes a lot of sap, just for a little bit of syrup. Oh, and I remember I actually got to try some of the syrup that they had made from the sap of those trees. I had them on tiny little pancakes that they had for us to try. That's a connection I'm making to this story. Uncle Earl plows the field. Look at Edward. He's watching the two bugs work in the field too. I remember when I was little, my daddy had a big tractor, even bigger than this, that had a cab that went over the top of him. And I remember after kindergarten, I would go in the back of his tractor and I would take a nap while he was plowing the fields. I remember I would lay my head down in the back and my head would bump around because it was so bumpy. But I was so tired. It was nap time for me after my day of kindergarten. I remember napping while my dad was plowing fields. That's a good memory for me. I'm making another connection. Edward digs a hole in the garden. When it rains, Edward goes inside. Look at the pigs. They're having fun out in the water. Judy teaches Edward how to knit. He's got a lot of holes. Edward and Judy go outside to tend sheep. Before supper, Edward paints the barn. Notice what's funny about this. He's painting the barn yellow. Edward is very hungry at dinner. Wow, look how piled up his plate is. I remember I have 5 brothers and sisters, and we all had to help on the farm. And I remember my mom always made really big dinners because we were all so very hungry after doing all of our chores outside and helping with the animals. And I remember having really big meals like this too. And we usually had special milk from our own cows, and usually we had meat from our own cows and vegetables and things that we grew in our own garden. So this reminds me a lot of that too. I'm making another connection. Edward and Judy have fun at the barn dance. It's bedtime at Hawthorne Farm. You can tell he's pretty tired. Working on a farm, I remember, is very tiresome work. Lots of hard work to do. This was kind of a funny story, wasn't it? Talking about how Edward was learning how to do things on a farm. He didn't always do them the right way, or maybe he had problems or troubles, but it was fun to watch him try. Remember, readers, in your own stories and in your own books and your stories that mom and dad are reading to you, or your brother and your sister, remember, practice making connections to your stories using your prior knowledge to help you understand and connect with your stories even more. We'll see you next time.